get this going again. Gives me great pleasure to welcome you all back to part 2 of our Boards and Beyond discussion. And I'm just, since everybody got introduced pretty much last week, I'm just going to throw this back to Melissa. Thank you very much, and hand it off to you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. So we're going to start off by checking in with our homework. So I love saying that to a group of successful adults. Your homework. Did you do your homework? Whether you did your homework or not, you did your homework in some way, shape, or form. That's how I always look at things. So I am curious, how many of you were able to take a moment and look at your network and kind of do a little assessment of your network and see where there might be gaps and see where there might be opportunities? What did you notice? And if you didn't officially do your homework, what do you notice about your network right now? In particular, when it comes to setting a goal like getting on a corporate governance board. Like getting on a public board, it's a little bit different when you're looking at your network when you have a specific goal. If you just look at your network overall, it's one thing, but when you're looking at it through the lens of, hey, I want to get on a corporate board someday, it's a little bit different. So what did y'all notice? Let's talk about it. Who would like to share something that they noticed or didn't notice?
No, I think and I didn't spend a huge amount of time, but I will say that reaching and looking kind of at the C-level suite, it is, and the people are closest to me, and I think everyone will agree with this. It's really men. It's all men.
And is there something about that? Like, what do you make up about that?
Well, I think it's our industry. I mean, you have a few people like Christine, who's on the call, who are, at that C-level, Mary, et cetera. But I think that the majority of the network, and also I guess the other thing that I hadn't thought about until we're talking about is there's also a closeness to that network. Everybody knows each other, everybody's friends. Which I think is helpful, right? Is the, kind of bringing us all up, but it is the majority of the group happens to be men.
Excellent. And are these, when you look at it in terms of alignment on goals and them understanding you, aside from just being colleagues, right? Understanding your goals and understanding what you want next, and being able to leverage those relationships. Do you feel like you're leveraging those relationships?
No, but I feel very comfortable being able to leverage them. And I hadn't thought of that until we talked about that last week.
Cool. Excellent noticing. Thanks, Kate. Who else? Who else has looked at their network and come up with some thoughts and ideas and maybe some actions?
Hi, it's Carolyn. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So for me, it's really, I have a lot of connections and people that are on boards and so forth, very many C-suite folks. And for me, it's about time, just finding time to connect with them, and actually me making the time. It's one of those things I'm sure we all do. I put sort of my priorities as always on the back burner. I'm sort of working on all the other priorities for the teams and so forth. So that's something that is a goal of mine, is to just spend maybe at least, if it's 1 or 2 hours a week, just reconnecting with the people that I do know and talking to them about their board experience and learning from them.
Yeah, I love that, Carolyn, because when you say 1 to 2 hours a week, that seems sort of like a manageable thing, because that's, say, maybe 15, 20 minutes a day, or, send a couple emails, 2 or 3 emails a day, or 2 or 3 phone calls a day. So it's something that is, it can become a habit, right? You can take it at a bite-sized pace, because we all know there are those people that reach out to us in our network that they only reach out to us when they want something. So the phone rings and you're like, oh, I wonder how much this phone call is going to cost me today.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, so taking that opportunity to connect with these people that you already feel, you feel good rapport with, and just to keep the momentum going. I love that, Carolyn. Who else has explored their network and looked and noticed some things?
I'll share. This is Holly.
Thanks, Holly.
So I had already made some commitments to myself in terms of like what Carolyn was just saying about time. So in the last 3 weeks, I did spend an hour, and it was during work time. I'm in this other group, and they're really trying, it's all women, professional women, and they've been trying to segment us into more themed groupings. For example, beauty was one group that I really have affinity for because of my background with Estee Lauder. And then sales leadership was one that I just attended last week, and they try to make it over lunchtime via Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So, just taking that time to connect with new people, new faces, and there's always one on the screen that you just have a connection with, right? And then taking that lead to then connect outside of that to try to build something and see if there is some chemistry there, and some mutual assistance that can be provided. So I'm really trying to just put it in my schedule and make the commitment to myself to put myself in those sorts of situations.
Yeah, I love it. And I hear a couple things. One is just the structure of it, but then the other is following that kind of hunch, that kind of instinct that you get when you meet somebody in whether it could be a webinar, it could be a panel, and you've never met that person from Adam. You still don't know the person, right? But you see them on the screen and you say, let's just pull them up on LinkedIn and let's just see. I can't tell you how many times I've done that with panelists that I never thought would give me the time of day, and they've emailed me back. We've met for coffee. We've actually met out live. It's amazing when you just ask. Yeah. So making that ask following your hunch and making the ask is huge. So when we look at our network and we look at the people that we're talking to, we're looking at, okay, the variety of industries. It's most of us, for the most part, we end up connecting with people that do the same things that we do and or our vendors, and we kind of stick within our same industry. And when you are looking to expand and potentially get on a corporate board, you might want to expand that, right? So looking at different industries, you want the perspective with your network that every networking opportunity is an opportunity to open up more opportunities for you for the next level. You want to level up your network, and you want to be increasing your influence. So it's one thing to be talking to your peers, and it's another thing to be taking that next level up to people that might already have a seat on a corporate board, or might know people that have seats on corporate boards. So we're always looking at an opportunity to increase our influence and our possibilities. So when you're networking, as you're going through, when you're meeting with people, obviously have a goal, right? Be willing to get uncomfortable. So those people that you think, I don't know if they're actually going to call me back. I don't know if they're going to make time for me. I don't know if I'm going to have enough information. Am I going to, whatever, just get uncomfortable. It's fine. Earlier on the call, David and I were talking about karaoke. Like, you just have to be willing to just go for it and get uncomfortable, and it's fine, and diversify. So if you're noticing that most of the people that you're talking to are your same gender or your same race or in your same industry, whatever the sameness is, break out of that and actually go out of your way to find somebody that is diverse, whether it's they're doing your role but in another country or in another industry. Diversify, because that is where you're going to have a sweet spot there. And be generous. So, per our conversation earlier, when you're talking to somebody, have something to offer, whether it's, obviously you're offering up your time, they are too, but offering up insights, being generous with your network, and being clear. And we are connecting so that we can leverage each other's relationships. We can leverage our networks. Anytime you see somebody within my network, if I can help you in any way, let me know. And to be authentically generous with that, because people do reply and respond to reciprocity, right? We know that that's like a proven already, but it's just nice to feel generous. You feel good about it, they feel good about it. So be generous with your network and keep it activated. So those people that you haven't connected with, you know, one of the things you look at, oh, well, wait a minute, I haven't talked to that person in 10 years, but gosh, we worked on this, the most amazing project, the most amazing event 10 years ago. Well, if you have that inspired action, reactivate that person, because you have no idea what things have shifted in that person's life and that person's career that may be an advantage to you and that you may be of service to them. So keeping your network activated. I highly recommend, I'm a big fan of the number 3. So if every day you're reaching out to 3 people that you don't quote unquote need to, you know, they're not on your docket because of a current project, but activating your community. And, you know, you might want to take time at the beginning of the week and be strategic and think, okay, let's see, I'm going to focus on, okay, I was in this role at one point. I did meet a bunch of people on this project. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to pull up who those people were. And that's going to be my strategy for the week. But do it with a goal, do it with a strategy in mind, and then activate it all week long. And it makes it fun, right? So we want, before we start talking about the current climate, I just wanted to close out and ask anybody if you had any questions on networking, on tactics, on mindset, on anything regarding network, because we are going to be leveraging our network as part of our commitment to action at the end. So do we have any networking questions right now? I'm guessing no. Okay, excellent. So we've checked in. We are now going to spend some time looking at the current climate, what's going on with women on boards and boards in general. We'll spend a short amount of time here. One of the things, all of you have gotten a handout. If you haven't gotten it, we'll make sure that in a follow-up email that you'll receive it. In that handout, there is a list of resources, books, organizations, where I was going to hold it up for you to see, but you've gotten it. There's a whole list of resources for you with different organizations that have events, books, information, other opportunities. And so you want to take advantage of those, because you are going to meet other like-minded people that are on this same path that you are, and they will be from different industries, and it will be another opportunity for you to expand your network and learn along the way. So it's not just about the people, but it's about what you're learning. You are going to start to learn and become more familiar with the terminology and the roles and all of that. So the network is your path of education as well. It's not just about the connecting part, it's the education part. So utilize that list of resources that's on your handout. And for now, let's get some context. So we have the context in which to build our board pitch, because that's what we will spend the most of today doing, is looking at a board pitch and creating that for ourselves. Okay, are we good? Everybody ready for what's happening? Excellent. Okay, the current climate we've got right now, this is based on the most recent report that's got all of the gender diversity across the globe. And I wanted to use this Deloitte report, even though there's going to be more data coming out this year. But as of this 2019 report, 16.9% of the board seats were held by women, 5.3% of the board chairs, 4.4% of the CEOs, and 12.7% of the CFOs. So it's not necessarily where we want it to be, and it is moving towards equity and parity. And so you are part of this. You are part of this movement, which is exciting. In terms of recently, and in the US, the Russell 3000, we have reached 20% of women are on board seats, on corporate boards. And that data comes from 2020 Women on Boards, and that's based on 2019 data. That's just for the United States, okay? This is a global perspective. And because we're in a global organization, I wanna look at it globally, not just from a US vantage point. Boom. And but back to the United States and in other countries, there is a massive wave of legislation to increase diversity on boards. The most recent one happened in Washington, and that was in June of this year, where you have to have 25% or more women on your board for at the majority of the year, 275 fiscal days, by January of 2022. Now, some companies will be exempt if they are in an emerging industry, if they are a small cap company. A lot of them have, there are loopholes there, but for the most part, you're gonna have to have 25% or more women on your board. In other states, you know, California has legislation. Some of the states, there's a penalty if you don't. Some of the states, it's just about reporting. But in general, it's not so much about the legislation. It really is about the mentality that the corporate culture has now. They know that it has to be more diverse. They have to be more gender diverse, and they have to be more racially diverse. So the trend is in support of corporations actively looking outside of their networks, actively trying to find diverse candidates. Whereas before, it would just be easier to, hey, you talk to your mate, you see what, you know somebody, okay, great, well, let's just bring him in, okay, let's get him on the board. And then it just stays very same, and it's not evolving in a diverse way. So now is the time to get active. So board service, some of this may be knowledge that y'all have already, but let's just kind of presence it. What does board service actually look like? You are the fiduciary, you are in charge of the fiduciary responsibility of the company. So it's all about long-term growth. It's all about increasing value for the shareholders. You are overseeing policy. It's not about day-to-day operations, right? It's a very global, high-level view of what's going on in the organization. You're looking at the mission. You're looking at the strategy, right? So all of that, as you're thinking about your past career, you know, all the experience that you have done this for your own organizations. You have done this for clients. You have thought strategically about their missions. You've done this. So you want to be capturing and bringing to mind areas and ways you've done this in the past, right? Because this is what boards are going to be looking for. Also, just sort of a matter of course, but if you're on a corporate board, you have to attend the meetings. And the meetings are anywhere from 4 to 12 meetings a year. If you're, depending on what committee you're on, you may have more meetings for that committee, especially if you're on the executive committee. They can call a meeting in a moment's notice and you might have to jump on it. But meetings for board service, you're getting paid to be on a board. They're going to expect that you're at the meeting. They're not optional. So board committees. There are a variety of different committees that you can serve on when you're on a corporate board. You don't have to already know exactly where you would fit perfectly, right? But you want to have an idea of where you can add value. And as you're speaking to people within your network and as you're learning more about board service, you will be able to get a more clear view about it. But just looking back at your career thinking, okay, which committees would I be able to add value? Would it be audit and finance? I've got a great financial background. Would it be nominating and governance, right? One thing to note about the nominating and governance committee is if you happen to know people that are on nominating committees, well, they're the people that nominate people for that board. So that's a very good contact to have in general. And then once you are on a corporate board, if you are lucky to be on that nominating committee, then you will have that purview to think about, okay, how can we diversify this board? What strengths are missing? How can we increase the culture of this board? So that's that nominating committee. The enterprise committee looks at strategy and how to implement strategy across the enterprise. Risk is obviously about risk mitigation. And when you're looking at strategy, simultaneously looking at risk and saying, okay, if we take these strategic steps, how are we managing our risk when we're making those forward movement? Environmental. Obviously, climate change is a big issue right now, and so companies are looking at their environmental impact, not only in their products, but how their products are made, how they're implemented, and different ways that they can serve and work against climate change. Social is also huge, particularly this year with all of the racial justice that's going on. So diversity, equity, inclusion, looking at all of the stakeholders for the organization, not just the shareholders, but looking at stakeholders within the community. And the executive committee, as I mentioned before, they are a subset of the committees, and they can be called at a moment's notice. So for example, the chairs of the committees, the main chair of the committee, the vice president, the treasurer, that executive committee, typically you've got a set group of meetings that the board will meet all year long, and you'll know what those quarterly meetings are way in advance. But if you're on the executive committee and there's a pressing issue, then they can call that to action at any moment. Now, typically, all of these boards would be meeting live. There would often be a lot of travel involved, and as you know, we're all in a different world now, so most boards are meeting boards are meeting virtually. So it has expanded just the idea of where, what organizations you can be on a board. A lot of times people would think locally, but you can be on a board for any organization in any location. So you want to keep your mind open about diversifying your network across the country so that you have more opportunities to get on a board. I'm going to pause for a minute because I've just sort of spewed a bunch at you. Does anybody have any questions so far? Most of this stuff is out there and you can find out more information about it, but it's good to kind of keep this in context as we're looking at putting together our pitch. So there are different types of board experience that you can get. Not everybody is going to just walk right onto a public board, right? There are privately held companies, there are not-for-profits. A not-for-profit is a great way of getting experience on a corporate, getting experience towards a corporate board. For one thing, you'll get the experience of being on a board. But number two, looking at the not-for-profits from a strategic standpoint. So you can look online at different not-for-profits. Last week it came up, there are lots of interest in animal welfare and different services to your community. So if you look up those organizations, you can see who's on those boards. There might be somebody that's on that not-for-profit board that's also serving on corporate boards. That might be a good networking opportunity for you, because then they'll see how you perform on the not-for-profit board, and then if a board seat comes available in a board that they serve on or another board that they're aware of, they think, oh, okay, wait a minute. Like, I remember Kate, I served on this not-for-profit board with her. She would be perfect for this corporate board seat. So it's an opportunity to not only gain experience, but meet additional people that are serving on corporate boards that you can network with. There are government and associations that you can work on at the community level. So any of this type of board experience will help amp you up and create more leverage for you to get on a public board and or a bigger public board. So now we are going to play around. I want to play around with one of the tools, because I was talking to David and Anna, and you haven't used the annotate tool, and it'll be a fun way for us to kind of interact here. So thinking about your experience, how do you add value to a corporate board? Now, it could be professional experience, it could be part of your vision, your values, your mission, some things that we spoke about last week. So I'm curious where you see yourself adding value. Now, and the way we're going to do this is through annotate. So if you go to the top, if you take the arrow to the top of your screen, you'll be able to, a little black bar should pop down. Okay, and as the little black bar, I'm going to move this. I have you guys right by my black bar. So you put it right above at the top, a black bar should drop down, and you may see something that says view options, or you may just see the options horizontal. If you see those options horizontal, annotate is the second from the right. And you can just click on annotate. Now, when you bring up the annotate, and if anybody has, oh yeah, David's drawing. Okay, so you can either write, or if you go to stamp, there's a stamp option, so you can click on that and you can pick a star, a heart, question, what have you. I'm going to pick a heart. And so let's see, I'm going to click, yeah, brand marketing and HR, ESG. So let's play around. Let's see where we are coming out here as far as contributing to corporate boards. I don't know why this is so fun. I kind of feel like it's a little bit like kindergarten, you know, but it's really fun to take a look at this. All right. Okay, so I'm curious to hear from folks where just somebody come off mute. Anyone can come off mute and just share a little bit about why they ticked the box where they did. And I will start with let's do crisis and risk management. There's a lot around crisis and risk management. Who's somebody that ticked the box for crisis and risk management?
I did. This is Christine. By the way, I wasn't with the first part of the group, so thank you for welcoming me to the second. I did this because during this year in particular, we've dealt with a lot of crisis, and coming from being a CEO in a New York-based company during a pandemic in financial services, I think that was the ultimate of crisis and risk, and there's a lot of legality that went alongside all of this. So it's interesting because I've spent a lot of the past 6 months more in crisis management and risk management in legal issues than I normally ever would. And so that's given me a lot of perspective and a lot of experience that I would be able to share in a meaningful way on a board. And we've navigated most of it pretty successfully.
I love that. I love that, Christine. One of the things that you might want to spend time doing is, and we'll have an opportunity to do that a little bit today, is to just capture some bullet points, like your top 3 success stories that you've navigated, the top 3 challenges and how you navigated them and what worked. And actually, to be honest, at this point, people are looking to see what didn't work as well. So you could say, hey, you know, this is how we navigated this. This didn't work, and then this did, and this is why, right? So that strategic understanding of how you handled that crisis, so that you can then apply it to another crisis in future, is huge. That's great. Thank you, Christine. Let's see, I've got a bunch around environmental, social, and governance. Can somebody come off and talk to me about that? Don't be shy. There are lots of hearts and stars and checks. Okay, well,
sure.
all of our...
I'll do that.
Sorry, I was gonna.
I'll jump in. How's that? I think just, you know, based on my background with respect to sustainability and governance on association boards, I felt that was something that I could lend as a skill set going forward. So it's a kind of a dual interest on the sustainability side, but then working on existing association boards. It's really, for me, I'm trying to understand the transition from association boards to corporate boards and really what the differences are and what the expectations are. So if I can throw that in as well as more of a question.
Yeah, and it's at an association level, well, obviously, when you're at a corporate level, they are looking to make sure that their corporation is doing well, and they're going to, it's sort of the minor leagues versus the majors. So then it's really about networking and being able to prove your mettle and be able to get those opportunities. And I think right now is the fact that you've got this association experience, Laura, and the fact that in the ESG area is a newer area where people are shifting their focus to. It had not been as big of a focus as it is now. So there are great opportunities for you to take this and leverage it into corporate. So it's just now a question of leveraging your network and getting to those opportunities, because you'll be able to share that talent and share that value with the corporate at the corporate level. Let's see, we'll do one more. HR comp and benefits. Who wants to share about HR comp and benefits?
I can, Melissa. And hi, everybody. I wasn't here last week either, so I'm excited to be joining today. This is kind of my obvious one. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources for Diversified Communications, so this is right up my alley. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And I have experience on a nonprofit board as well, and I have leveraged this skill set. So I'm interested in, as Laura was just mentioning, how you can sort of parlay that nonprofit or association experience into a corporate board experience.
Excellent. Yeah, VP of HR, your skills when it comes to a compensation committee or nominating committee, you'd be perfect for that. So now it's a question of taking what we're doing here and claiming it and pitching it and making the asks. So thank you, and I'm glad that you're here today, Janice. And that's actually a good note for anybody who wasn't here last week. Last week we focused mainly on mindset and vision and strengths and looking at how we leverage that as we're on this path, as we're on this journey to get on a corporate board. Those handouts and the recording are both available, and also I'm available if you want to ask any questions about that after the fact. So anybody that missed last week, feel free to reach out. Okay, so thanks everybody for playing around with the annotation. That was, now let me get out of annotation mode so I can actually move this the slide. Okay, so boards, they are going to find their directors two ways. Oh, interesting, the annotation is staying the whole time. Let's see. Bum, 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 clear, there we go. The boards are looking for their directors, and they're finding them through search firms, and they're also finding them through their network. It's going to be best for you to obviously leverage your network as opposed to going through somebody that's at an executive search firm. Although if you have contacts that are at executive search firms and they do searches for board directors, that's a great person to have in your network to share a board profile with, share a pitch with, get feedback, and get in their sights, so that when they're thinking about board directors, they are thinking about you. So if you know people at these firms, that's great, but it's not something that, oh, I have to go through a firm to get on a board. You don't. Oh, Mary raised your hand. Mary.
Hi, so one thing that happened last week, I was on another webinar, partly because I'd been doing this work, looking into finding speakers for SISO, and there's a company called Blue Steps, and they inundate me with emails, and I'm sure everybody else, but they ran a webinar and last week about how to get on boards. And one of the, there's a fee to be a part of their network and so on. Are there any out there that we should avoid, or, because a lot of the work that we did last week, I think, is like homework that you would have to do for them anyhow. So it was right in line with everything you had discussed last week. So that was interesting to me. But have you any sort of advice about those companies if you do tend to go that way?
What I would say is, and you might, okay, yeah, thanks, because I came back through your microphone. What I would say is, in the handout, I listed a bunch of resources. Those are all resources that I feel really solid about, right? And there's a plenty, right? And the National Association of Corporate Directors, Women Corporate Directors, 2020 Women on Boards, there are so many that are actual solidly great organizations. There are a lot of organizations where it's kind of, pay to play. And you pay them, maybe it's a monthly fee, maybe it's an annual fee, and then you'll get emails from them to find out that there's a board opening on XYZ board in XYZ location. Okay, if you think that that's helpful, that's great. But then you still have to go through the work of everybody that is paying for that service is also getting that email. Whoever they know, whatever organization they note in that email is getting inundated from everybody that is paying that organization. To me, it is not a legitimate thing, and those organizations make money off of it, and that's great, wonderful. But you actually want to be take it on yourself to do the research yourself and put yourself in those positions so that the people that know, because it's still going to get, they're still going to hire people that they know, or somebody that they've known and is even if it's not a direct connection, they're in 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? They've got somebody in their sphere. So getting the information that you would have to pay for it, to me, it does not make sense. It also doesn't make sense to me to pay to be in a class about getting there are big, long, expensive classes, and you don't necessarily need a big, long, expensive class. You just have to be self-started and be motivated. Even like the book that I reference, winning the board game, it has like everything that you need to know, right? And different ways of looking at your network and different ways of going about it. You don't actually need to pay, right? So that would be my advice. Now, if it's a networking opportunity, that's one thing, right? Or the National Association of Corporate Directors doing a certification, that type of thing can be very helpful because it's the Association of Corporate Directors. They're not trying to sell you a bill of goods, right? So trust your instincts, and if it seems like it's a for-profit scenario, then I would question it. But any of the resources that I listed in the handout, I stand by. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, and thank you for the question, Mary, because it's a good one, because there's so much out there, and it's funny, even on my LinkedIn, I get LinkedIn notices all the time as well. Oh, how about this? Pay this fee and we'll get you on an advisory board, and a lot of it is just not. It's no bueno. Let's just say it's no bueno. Okay, so some of the board considerations that we haven't discussed yet are, obviously they're going to be looking at your previous career, your function, your industry experience. They'll also often look at schools. So like depending on the culture of the board, if a lot of them are, went to Notre Dame, or if they're into, Ivy League schools or something like that, your university, whatever university you attended, can be advantageous. That's another thing to think about, is if you're involved with your alumni association with your university, or a fraternal organization, something like that. Pay attention to that. But yeah, diversity, board culture, succession planning, they are looking to make sure that they are that they have a plan in place for the longevity of their organization, and just no conflicts of interest, right? So you wouldn't be able to serve on boards for 2 companies that were competitors. So those are just some basic considerations. We're going to now start playing around with a board pitch and putting a board pitch together. So we want to look at numbers, data. So when you're thinking about your experience and you think about the value that you added, let's always try to add a number to it, whether it's a number of years, whether it's the number of dollars that you raised, earned, saved, the number of dollars of the industry. So for example, my background is in the advertising industry. So even though I worked in a subset of the advertising industry, I talk about the advertising industry. It was a $160 billion industry, right? Any qualifications, lots of you are serving on not-for-profit boards or association boards. So any of that board experience and your committee related qualifications, you want to be able to pull those together. And then thinking about strategic achievements. And once again, putting wherever you can, put a dollar impact to it, because people like to hear numbers and they like to hear the data. And this is something, you know, I also stress when it's with, when we're looking at women getting on boards, because a lot of times we don't necessarily put the financial to it, or we don't necessarily claim the value in the same way. And to the point made earlier, oftentimes it is a man that you're talking to. A man will like register that number, right? So we want to be bold with those figures. So in your handouts, if you have your handouts available, if you don't have your handout available, that's okay too. You can grab a piece of paper. I don't want anybody wasting any time. The first thing we want to look at is number of years and the dollar of and the dollar of the industry. So what I'm going to do for a moment, I am going to stop sharing this, and I am going to pull up, just for reference, it's not very sexy or anything, but I am going to pull up my, this is what I want. Nope, I don't want that. I'm going to pull up mine. While I do this, you start working on yours, because it's going to take a moment anyhow. So on the handout, we've got career credentials. That's the first piece. The second piece is prior board experience. The third piece is committee related qualifications. And the second piece, or the last piece there, is your greatest strategic achievement. All of that is up here on the screen right now, but I'm reiterating that because I'm about to pull the screen down so that I can pull up mine. But just start pulling that together for yourself. Ultimately, we're going to want, think of this as your elevator pitch, right? We want 3 to 5 sentences maximum on it. So just start pulling together your bullet points. If you can have 2 or 3 bullet points to choose from in each of the categories, that would be fantastic. So let me stop this for a moment. Okay. Would we be able to do some sharing here for these top two sections in terms of your career credentials and or prior board experience? You can either raise your hand or just come off of mute, and you can share either career credentials, so using numbers, and or prior board experience.
I actually have a couple questions for you,
Yeah.
Melissa. So looking at when you go back to how large the market is and what we work on, I think, you know, kind of the default is going to event trade shows and seeing how large they are, et cetera. I think what we do is bigger than that. It's connecting buyers and sellers. So can we kind of bring that up a level and say, you know, was kind of doing some research. The global business to business market is 5.7 trillion market. So and that's what we do globally, right? Is connect that rather than be in a media industry or an event industry, kind of combining that. So it's bringing it up.
I would say go for it. I would have both of the figures at the ready. So, okay. You know, because if you're looking at the specific trade show industry, that's one thing, but it also has an impact, as you said, B2B across the globe. And that $1 trillion number is much more, that's going to stick in somebody's mind. So okay. I would
cross verticals. Okay. And then my other question is, and I don't know if this just turns into a laundry list. So, you know, putting down board experience, associations, et cetera. What about councils?
You can throw that in there. What I would say is there are two things. So one thing that we're building right now is the pitch, right? That's going to be a 3 to 5 sentence piece, right? Because people will really only walk away remembering 3 things, if that. So you want to make sure that you know, clear in your head, what 3 things you want people to walk away with, right? Meanwhile, as you're doing this assessment and pulling and aggregating this information from your career, you are also going to be building a board profile, right? A board profile is different than a resume. It's bullet points, and you start with the most important stuff at the top, and then you would end with your university. It's no more than 1 page, and that's an opportunity where you'd be able to have your laundry list, your bullet points of all of the career specifics, and that would be in your board profile.
Okay, great.
And that's something that you would, when you're making a pitch to somebody, after you make that pitch to somebody, you would say, hey, you know, would you mind if I sent you my board profile? And then that's where you would include all of that information. But it's great to capture it now, and then you can pick and choose. And when we break out into the breakout rooms, you'll be able to play around with it. And you might, if something doesn't resonate, if you share something with your group and it doesn't resonate with them and it doesn't come across as powerful as something else, you might be like, oh, well, wait a minute, how about this one? So it's good to just pull out those bullet points. But when it comes to the pitch, you won't give a laundry list because nobody would remember it.
Got it. Okay, that's very helpful.
Melissa, one thought I have is that so many of us in this industry have been very active in particular industry sectors because of the shows we run for those sectors, and maybe the organizations we've worked with or partnered with, associations and so forth. And it seems to me that especially if it's a sector that you're no longer involved and don't have conflicts of interest in, but certainly a sector that you were actively involved in, there may be many companies that are in that sector that you could go back to with significant industry experience that's relevant to those particular companies.
David, that's an amazing point. Especially if you're not, say, so to speak, a generalist and you have a lot of industry knowledge. First of all, your contacts there are going to be phenomenal. Secondly, you are going to have so much information on that industry. So that I would include that in your board pitch, because that is a much more likely area for you to get on a board, right? And it would be, people don't necessarily want people that have the exact precise industry experience. They want different perspectives. So if you have the knowledge and the intel and the contacts, and yet you also bring a different vantage point and a different perspective to them, you're going to add a different level of value. So I think that's a wonderful point, David. So yes, when you're pulling together your board background, please make sure you're including industry experience that may not be just, you know, a linear thought. So thank you, David. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Carolyn.
Well, actually I have two. So the first one is for your board background. I've been part of nonprofits. I'm part of a nonprofit board now. So I get asked to be on more of those types of things, like how, but it's just time, right? It all goes back to time. You're giving back, right? Which I like to do, but at the end of the day, you know, jumping from a nonprofit to a profit board, I think is the end game right here. So how much time should you really spend on those types of endeavors, the whole nonprofit venture?
It's a really good question, Carolyn. So you've got a couple of things going on here. Number one, you want to make sure that what the work that you're doing is in alignment with your vision. It's in alignment with your mission. If a certain cause doesn't speak to you, then there's no point in working on that cause, because it's not going to actually give you a good return on your energy, right? At the same time, being strategic about the types of boards. So say it's a smaller not-for-profit, and then looking at other not-for-profits. Say maybe you're on the board of the local, the orchestra, or the Cancer Society, or a hospital board, or other boards. So that's when you really start looking at what boards do I want to serve on? So for example, knowing your target companies, say you've got so for me, gosh, I would love to be on the Starbucks corporate board.
Yeah,
like if I were going to pick a corporate board, like Starbucks, right? So, so then you would go to the Starbucks website, you look at their board of directors, it's all online. You can look up who's serving on their board. You can see what other boards those people serve on, and that will give you an idea. So this is where it gets really specific in terms of the companies that you're interested in, the ways that you want to add value, and then putting the pieces together, right? We are pulling this all together. It's sort of a little bit of a treasure hunt, right? And then be strategic. And so then maybe at a certain point, maybe you've served on a board for a number of years and you feel like you've done good work for that board, but there's another opportunity, and on that board of, say, the Art Institute of Chicago, it's there are going to be all these heavy players on an Art Institute of Chicago board because it's an internationally renowned museum, right? So it's going to be more competitive to get on that not-for-profit board, and it's going to cost you more because corporate boards, they pay you. Not-for-profit boards, you pay them, right?
That's right.
So, but you are going to be in the position to meet and network with people at a whole nother level. So it's really doing that sort of investigative research so that your time is well spent, because you are obviously being charitable with your time, you're being charitable with your money, and you want to be with your eyes set on a corporate board position. You want to be a little bit more strategic too. Like that's okay. You know, I also like to say that because I feel like sometimes with the not-for-profit thing, we feel we might be have a little feeling of guilt or a little weird feeling about being super strategic about it. You know, like, am I turning into like Gordon Gekko from Wall Street? No, you're not turning into Gordon Gekko from Wall Street. You're just being strategic with your time because we have a limited amount of time and money, right? So.
Sure. Well, and to your point, I think when I think about our board at Emerald, we have a lot of finance people, which, you know, we love, but there's one person that I connected with right when I started here, and his background is all in retail. He was the CFO at TJX companies, and now he sits on our board. He sits on Wayfair, you know, but I think he's on 5 different boards, all in the retail industry. And since that's most of what I've worked on my entire career, we connect, we talk often, you know, we talk about strategies because we have a very similar background. So to your point of looking at what you bring to a board, like what he, you know, when somebody asked the question about the industries, right? So he has a very specific industry that he came from that's very complementary to ours. So that makes him very valuable to me as a board member. So my second question is
Carolyn, quick question. He knows that you want to serve on a corporate board, right?
No, I haven't talked to him about it, but I'm going to.
Okay.
It's on my list.
Okay.
It's on my list because we're pretty close. You know, we go out for drinks and so forth when we're in each other's cities. But anyway, so the second question is, you know, I was lucky enough to be in a position to be on the executive team that took our company public, and so that was a lot of time and work, like a full-time second job, really. And so I'm not an officer of our board, but an executive that participates in board meetings and so forth for the company. So how do you position that?
I would position that as as a strategic achievement, right?
Okay.
With, you know, and in honesty, it doesn't matter which box you put it in. You know, ultimately you're going to prioritize all of these and figure out where it will go in your board profile. That taking a company public would go towards the top of your board profile, and it most likely will go into your board pitch as well, because that just shows that you know the inner workings of what it takes to take that company public, and that is a huge value add. So it's, even if you're not, you know, an executive on that committee, if you were part of that, 100% include that.
Okay.
I'm going to stop the share on this for a minute because we are going to start to go into our breakout groups, but I want to show you, and it's not the sexiest board pitch on the planet, but it gives you all of the pieces. Boom, 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 boom. Share. Okay, so if you pull out, or if you don't have your sheet, you can just a blank piece of paper. We want to structure these pitches very simply. And once you get it down, having this boilerplate is going to be helpful for you, but you don't have to memorize it like a speech, but getting it down in a very simple way makes sure that you've got all of the piece parts ready, okay? So when you start to make your pitch with somebody, the first thing you do is tell them your goal. You know, I intend to serve on a corporate board. So what I've done here is I've bolded out, and everybody's seeing my pitch, yeah? We're good. I've bolded out the piece for you to write down and for you to capture. So just saying, I intend to serve on a corporate board in blank number of years. I know that different people had different goals on this. Some people were looking at this out in the future, but you can just capture whatever time frame looks great to you. But the key is I intend, right? You're not, oh, I want to, or someday, or blah, blah, blah. No, I intend to serve on a corporate board. Let's see, there's stuff going on in the chat. I want to make sure. Oh, Michelle, if you want to follow up with me, you are happy to follow up with me on the rest. I have no problem with anybody following up with me after this. The second piece, paragraph 2, or bullet point 2, I am seeking the ideal board in the blank industry. So to David's point earlier, if you've got an industry that you are highly knowledgeable about because you've worked with them and their trade shows, capture that industry there, whatever industry you want to work in. But I am seeking the ideal board in the blank. And then where I'd add value because of, and this is that big number. So for me, I put where I'd add value because of my 20+ years leadership experience in the $160 billion advertising industry, right? So that's your second bullet point. I'm seeking the ideal board where I'd add value because, boom. And then you'll have a couple of bullet points where you bring in your experience. And this is going to be different for everybody. right? So for me, I ran an internationally renowned company where I gained experience in mergers and acquisitions, global marketing, and crisis management. I've served on 2 nonprofit boards and was also president of Women in Film Chicago board. So that's where I put in my own little personal experience. And then you want to leave them with where you can serve immediately on a committee. So I'm immediately qualified to serve on the ESG or global marketing committee. Like if they're going to put you on the board, they want to put you to work right away. So you want to tell them, I'm immediately qualified to do this, right? So pick a couple of the committees. I'm immediately qualified to serve here. And then at the end, you know, you'll always end with, may I send you my board profile? I'd really appreciate any feedback. Thank you for keeping me in mind for any future board positions. Set up a time to meet, set up a time for a virtual coffee, etc. But when you're putting together a board pitch, it's key to make sure that you are making the asks and that you are doing it in a way that is intentional, and it's intentional and you're already there. Like it's not like you intend you're going to be serving on a corporate board. So your mindset has to be in that, you know, on that level. Not someday I'd really like to, it would be really great if maybe I could do this one day. No, you're going to do it. So those are the piece parts of the pitch. So now what we are going to do, I'm going to stop the share. Now what we are going to do is break up into breakout rooms. And let's see how many people we have right now. We have 16 people. I can be in a breakout room. Anna is going to break us up into breakout rooms. David, I don't know if you want to be in a breakout room, but all of us, if you throw us into 5 breakout rooms, that should work. And then we can share feedback. What we are going to do before you do that, let me share let's go back to the presentation so I can let you know, oops, well, we can do it here too. Might as well, we're already here. Boom, 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 from beginning. Let me just scroll through here. Okay, we're practicing. So we're going to team up in 3s. We're going to take turns. So each person gets approximately 5 minutes. If you don't use your full 5 minutes, you know, you don't have to use your full 5 minutes. You want to read off your pitch or wherever your pitch is at. All of this, we're working with first drafts right now, so they can be as bad and horrible and clumsy and yucky as you want. You have to start somewhere. It's a first draft, right? Then ask for feedback, switch, so you make sure that everybody in your group gets a chance to read their pitch and hear some feedback. And have somebody kind of keep track of the time. Anna will be able to message in at 5 minutes and then at 10 minutes to let you know that you have 5 minutes left. But let's see here. It is 11:06. That should work, and everybody can have 5 minutes. Yep. Anna, are you good to throw people into breakout rooms?
One second. We've had some more people drop off, so I'm having to move some people around.
Okay, cool. And while Anna's looking at this, how is everybody feeling? Do you all have something that you'd be able to play around with in your small groups before we send everybody into small group land?
Yes.
Okay. And wherever you're at with it is perfect. You don't have to stress over it.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
Okay, in we go. I am not going to sing, David. Actually, you know, it just depends. It just depends on how bad people want it. No, I don't. We don't have time for me to sing. Here we go. This is my favorite part. I feel like it's so Star Trek when everybody all of a sudden shows up back in the room. Hello, everybody. Okay, so how did it go? Yeah, I've got some nods. I've got some, okay. We are going to take some shares. Let's take some shares. I will who wants to go first? I will give a quick model of making sure when you start off strong. And first of all, nobody's going to do this right. None of it's perfect, and they're all just drafts. They're all just drafts. So expect, what I want is for everybody to give me your absolute worst pitch that you will ever give. Okay, your worst pitch. That's what I'm asking for, and just start off strong and sell it. So I intend to serve on a corporate board in the next year. I am looking for an ideal board position in the tech industry. My background as a leader in the advertising industry, which is a $160 billion industry, makes me primed for this. I've also been president on a not-for-profit board. Would it be okay if I sent you my board profile, and would you be okay with giving me some feedback? I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Keep me in mind for any opportunities, board seats, etc. So just throw it out there. You can't screw it up. Who is going to go first? We're only going to take like 2 people, 2 or 3 people tops. Okay, I'm going to call on you have 2 seconds, and then I'm calling on somebody in my group. Okay, Janice is going because Janice is laughing.
I didn't have a choice here. They were going to call on me or could volunteer. So here we go. Okay, I intend to serve on a corporate board in the next 3 years. I'm seeking the ideal board role in the retail industry where I'd add value because of my 25+ years of experience in senior human resources leadership in the $5.7 trillion media or B2B industry. I currently run the global HR function at an international media and events company where I've gained experience in mergers and acquisitions, crisis management, and global leadership development. I also serve as board president for the nonprofit, the Maine Women's Fund, and have been on the board for 5 years and have served also on their governance committee and strategic planning committees. May I send you my board profile? I'd appreciate any feedback you could share. Thank you.
Yes, you can send me it, and you get, I'm clapping. We're all clapping. Janice, A+ for that. Thank you. How did it feel to do that?
Pretty good, actually. I mean, I really think your format is super useful and helps kind of make it concise and focused on what really needs to come out in that short introduction.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, just make the ask. Okay, one more volunteer. This is a hard crowd, man. This is a hard crowd.
Do I get to pick somebody since I went
Oh,
first?
actually, that's a great idea. Janice, you pick. You be the bad guy.
Let's see. How about Nicole? I know she's really shy, so. You're not going to do it?
This is challenging for me because I got to get a job, Janice. Like, I'm in job mode. So board mode this is all, I'm trying to utilize this to refine my pitch,
Okay.
for myself. So I I'm in a different headspace, but
Gotcha.
but thank you for the vote of confidence.
Well, okay, so this is the perfect opportunity then, because it doesn't matter if you can use this format for a job search,
Yeah, which I have been, and it was really interesting because Kate brought up the point about size of industry in general, and what I have found, and this is what I brought up with Holly and Laura, is that when you speak to people within our space or industry and you say the events, or we understand what it means, but outside of this industry, they still think of you as a party planner or an event planner. And someone asked me questions the other day about, so what would you bring as a marketer to my organization? And I said, well, that's a really great question, because my mastery of marketing, due to the nature of the events industry having to wear so many different hats, is I understand audience and customer acquisition, retention from small mom and pop to enterprise level accounts. I can sell. I'm a selling marketer at all times. I understand customer experience from their very first touch point to their exit. I have run events, which means that I understand how to connect people, whether it is 10 people or 60,000 people at the Javits Center. Like, Melissa, our challenge, I think, I'm going to say this on behalf of, I think, others on this call, is the events industry is very hard to put in that one sentence, because what we do and how we impact communities and, the industries that we serve it's enormous.
And you just nailed it. The way you just explained it, there's no way that I would walk away from this conversation thinking that you're a party planner.
Yeah,
I don't think that at all. I think of you as an influencer, and I think of you as a marketing and a sales expert. So so you taking this opportunity to be shy, I don't know where that came from. Like, you're
well, no, I'm not shy. There's no shyness here, and I've gotten really good at my pitch, Melissa. Like, I've spent 6 months now in pitch land, so I'm really good at getting the first couple of meetings, and I get great interest, and then we're not hiring. You got to hold out another month. How much longer? We're not quite there. Can you give it another 2 months? Like, can you hang 4 months? Like, Nick, you're awesome. You're going to bring new energy into the company. So Melissa, it's just, I think I have gotten good at my pitch, but, and this has been really helpful too, because it's, just in structure and, even hearing, the number from Kate in the trillions, when I think I know my last sort of silo or industry was the events industry. And as an events industry, the number we'd use was $6 billion was our contribution to the economy. Of course, no one in government knows that, right? Clearly, because we're all, it's neither here nor there. So, but this has been helpful. So I apologize, but maybe what I said can help others just think about, how to better sort of think about what we do and our industry and how we serve it.
I agree. I think that you did, Nicole, 100%. So we are at time. We're actually 1 minute over. So here are some other things that we can do quickly. And I will share the slide deck like I did last time. So you can update your LinkedIn profile. So update your header with seeking corporate board position under your title. You can list your board experience, include any excerpts from the board pitch in your board profile. Use data and numbers to illustrate your accomplishments and focus on key areas of board interest. So get specific. So in addition to your LinkedIn, having a cover letter, putting together a solid cover letter that can amplify what you would put in your board profile. Having a board profile. Once again, with this board profile, it's one page, it's bullet points, and you're just talking about the pieces that we put in your board background in the handout. Using social media in a smart way, right? Your brand on social media so that people, when they go to vet you on social media, you're there, right? Attending other conferences, looking at publications, getting potential speaking engagements, whether it's on a panel or whether it's serving as an expert in a publication, right? So get yourself out there. So working your network. We talked about this before. Identify 10 contacts, take them for coffee or lunch, or do a live or virtual meeting. Share your pitch and profile with them. Even if they're not necessarily already serving on a corporate board, you've got people in your network that will give you honest feedback. And then request advice and 1 or 2 referrals. Make sure that when you're talking to somebody that you say, hey, this has been great, this has been so helpful, who else would you recommend that I meet with? Don't forget to send thank you notes. You know how to do that. Keep in touch. People want to find out. If I met with you and I knew you wanted to be on a corporate board, and then I found out through somebody else that you actually got on a corporate board, I'd be upset because, once you're involved, you're kind of invested in that person getting on a corporate board. So keep in touch on people, keep in touch with people on your progress, right? It'll keep stoking the fire. And use your CRM or a spreadsheet or a calendar to track info, follow up, have a structure to it like we were talking at the beginning. And so now just commit. Like, commit to these actions, refine your board pitch, update your profile, write a cover letter, write a board profile, contact 3 people, expand your network. And then the key is practicing all of this using an inspired mindset and the mindset that you are going to be serving on a corporate board, right? And apply this. Oh, you can apply these commitments to any professional goal, even a personal goal that you have. Just make these commitments to yourself. So now we are over time. If people want to type in what you're committing to this week into the chat room, feel free to type it in. And I am just going to say thank you. I have really enjoyed being with all of you this week and last week. And I am happy to be I'm happy to look at board profiles. I'm happy to look at your pitches. If you want to email me along the way, we've tried to put 10 pounds of sausage in a 5-pound sausage casing. We just really have. And to do it in a way where it's interactive and you get to connect with your group has been key. And so I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate you rolling with the punches in breakout rooms and annotates and all of that. And I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Melissa. This was great. Look forward to hearing about everyone getting on a board soon, at least in 3 years.
We'll have to track it. Yes, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everybody. I know it's past time, as we've said, so we will cut it here. The recording will be available, and I will post it for those of you who want to go back to it or want to share it. And Melissa, thank you again. And Mary, thank you for putting all this together. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Everybody have a great rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.